Welcome to the Lotco Business Podcast, a show all about helping you as a retailer, brand, or creative understand the actual business side of running your business. I offer straightforward, practical advice about the nitty-gritty of making money from your creative passion. We will be covering bite-sized business and marketing lessons, as well as interviews with experts and trailblazers in the fashion, homewares, and design industries. My name is Melissa Robbins. I'm a business coach, colour-loving, non-coffee drinking Melburnian. Let's get into it. Hello and welcome to today's episode. My name is Melissa Robbins. I am bringing you today a slightly different episode to normal. This one is a live session that I ran on Instagram a couple of months ago, all about how to generate 50K months in your business. Now, the way that we did this was had that big picture goal of what we wanted to achieve and then breaking it down, reverse engineering, what does that actually look like? One of my favorite things to do is to really have those, big stretch goals, but then actually say, well, what does that look like though? How do you actually achieve that? What are the things you need to focus on? What are the numbers that you need to look at? What are the numbers you've got already in your business? And so what does that look like for you in particular? I dive deep into different product businesses, whether it's an online store, a physical retail store, and someone who has a brand and they also wholesale. So let me know what you think. I look forward to hearing your feedback on this one. Here we go. Hello, welcome. I am here live chatting to you today all about how to get to 50K months. I wanted to come on here because I see it so often. People talk about for service-based businesses, the 50K months, what that means, how to get there, what it means for revenue streams and stuff like that. So what I wanted to do was come on here and just have a little chat about it for product-based businesses. What I said earlier on my Instagram story was all about the fact that, when I talk about that, what comes up for you? Do you immediately think, well, it's not possible for me, or, what barriers do you put up, or do you think that'll never be me? Or maybe it's like, well, I don't need to get to that amount. Like I've just chosen that amount because it is a number that sort of service-based businesses use. I've just sort of picked that as a number, but obviously not everyone wants to get to that level. Maybe you want to get to 20K, maybe you want to get to 10K, 20K, 30K, 50K, whatever it might be. But I just picked 50K so that it can be that number of like, okay, well, where can we get started? That's a sort of starting point for where your goals might be. All right. So one of the first things I do in my roadmap program with lots of people, and lots of you are in here, I can see, is we talk about goals and what your goals are for sales goals. And, you've got to, having those goals is all well and good, but then it's like, how do you actually get there? And what does it look like to have those 50K months? So what I want to talk about is you need to have, I believe you should have multiple sales channels. So you may have, if you're a brand, and I'm going to talk to both brand and retail stores separate, sort of together and separately. If you're a brand, then what you want to be doing is having ideally multiple sales channels, because I think relying on one is the older days of putting all your eggs in one basket. It just makes it a lot harder if something goes wrong in one area. So multiple sales channels for a brand. For a retail store, that might mean multiple sales channels to you, might be online and also in person or events occasionally as well. So that may be an element of what you do. So it's not just your online store, but do you also do occasional events or pop-ups or, markets or shopping center sort of installations, stuff like that as well? Do you occasionally have a physical space or a warehouse sale? So there's some things that you can do also. Then for the brands, do you break that down? If you want 50K months, is it broken down into, okay, D2C, I want to have $30,000 to $40,000 coming in from my direct to consumer channel. Do you then break it down and say, well, some of that also could be a wholesale channel? So looking at it, with your wholesale, do you get regular orders per month, or do you get lump sums that maybe twice a year you get your big buy-in happen? What does that look like spread out over the average of the every month? So whether you get orders every month or whether that money is spread out over that month, what is your average that you will generate? So if you want direct to consumer sales, what you've got to then do is look at all your numbers on your website. So it's all a numbers game. And any of you who know me well know I used to be a maths teacher, and it is something that I'm not like. I've always been that science maths brain, as well as a creative being my own, had my own brand and had my own retail store. So I've sort of got a little bit of right and left brain going on there. But definitely for me, when I look back at what I didn't do as well when I had my brand and when I had my retail store, was focus enough on the numbers and really review and analyze what those numbers meant as well. So, the numbers that I believe for direct to consumer, what you need to be looking at is one, your visitors to your website. So three numbers. Your visitors, your average order value, and your conversion rate. They're the sort of priority things to look at when you're trying to figure out what your actual, sales that you can generate are, and what area you need to focus on, or can you tweak and change each of those to really have an impact on your total sales. Now, the same thing goes for physical retail stores too, in terms of you should be looking at your foot traffic, like how many people are actually coming into store, what is the average order value that they're actually spending, and are you converting enough of them? So is the staff that you have in store or the layout or your merchandising in store allowing you to convert as many, same thing sort of thing on your website? Like the more you obviously can convert, the higher your sales will be. The higher average order value, then every customer is worth more money. So same thing, looking at your visitors, your average order value, and your conversion rate. So in my program, I have a full key metrics sort of to map out. I'm just going to have a look at this here. So for example, if we are looking at a retail business that wants to generate around between $8,000 to $10,000 a week, so that therefore would be around 30 to 40 a month, and then you might have another sales channel which is going to give you that other 10 to make up to 50. If that is the case, let's look at what numbers you might need. All right, does anyone want to put in here in the comments what your average order value is, and even if you want to put your conversion rate in here as well, we can have a little look. I'm going to just use an example now, but if you wanted to put your comment in there, I can use it for the next one. So what we want to do is generate about $40,000 a month from our website. Of course, you want it for a week as well. Average conversion rate of 3%. Now that is high. But I'm just going to use that as an example to start off with. If the conversion rate is 3% and your average order value is $220. Now again, yours might be way less. Your conversion rate might be way lower. Okay, so what we're looking at then is, what do you need to generate visitors wise to get those numbers? If your numbers are 3% conversion and you have an average order of $220. So to generate enough for $40,000 a month, because we're going to have some come from other area, we need to have at least 6,500 visitors to our website a month. So then if that's what you're trying to do and you've maximized your conversion rate, you've got it up to 3%, which is pretty good. If your average order is $220, which again is pretty good, then the next thing you need to do is focus on your visitors. So you really need to focus on getting more people to your website, because and having enough stock obviously for them to buy. We're not talking about product right here in this session, but obviously you need that product to be able to sell and have these sales. So that is something else to think about. And I'll put that down as let's get back to that in a moment, and how much product you need to have. So let's go through. So the person who has a 3% conversion rate and a average order of 220 needs 6,500 visitors per month to actually generate that. Now, some of those might be completely new visitors in terms of your customer return rate. It depends on what that is. Depends on if they're all new visitors or if they're people who are already your customers who are coming back. The higher your customer return rate, the less new visitors you need to attract. But you still need to get the visitors who know about you back again, and that's where email marketing comes in. But let's go through now. If your percentage dropped to 2%, so your conversion rate was only 2%, what that would do to your sales. So the same amount of visitors, 6,500, you've now gone down to 2% conversion rate, and your income has dropped to almost $15,000. So you can see by the same amount of visitors, by a lower conversion rate, you need to have, it's going to drop your sales. So if we still had the same amount of visitors, we would need our average order to be going up to be able to generate that same amount of money. Let's look at if this one here, 102 and 2.1. All right, so what they need to be doing to generate 40,000 per month. Okay, so to be generating $40,000 per month with a conversion rate of 2.1% and with an average order of 102, you can get to $42,000 by having 20,000 visitors to your website a month. So what that means is you need to be either focusing on that traffic to your website, whether it's through Facebook ads, whether it's through Pinterest and people coming that way, whether it's through PR and people actually, and articles written about you and people coming, finding out about you that way, whether it's through your email marketing and you're actually bringing people to your website that way. But you need to look at if that's, if you can't change your conversion rate and you can't change your average order value, then you need 20,000 visitors per month. And that's for 42,000 to get to that point. So it's like, well, how far off are you now? What does your numbers look like now? And can you tweak and change those three altogether to boost? So can you get your average order value up? How do you do that? A few tips and tools are that you can have some bundles on your website, so you can sort of attract and group things together to push that number of units up that people are buying. You can have a free shipping threshold. So maybe your free shipping is $100 now because maybe that's why it's 102, and then maybe you push it up slightly higher so that then people buy a little bit more to get over that mark. Maybe you look at your categories and price points and you start to add a few little higher ones in there to actually boost up the amount people are buying, and maybe have incentive for, like buy one, get one, or buy multiples of things as well. So can you set up some sets and bundles within your offering so that people are buying more? There are a few ways that you can do that. Conversion rate, 2.1 is good. How do you get it higher? And this is where looking at your menu navigation, looking at your checkout process, a few things to look at for your numbers on your website are things like your add to cart number and your conversion and your actual conversion rate. If people aren't adding to cart in the first place, then your conversion rate is going to be lower anyway. So how do you get people to add to cart in the first place? And an add to cart number that's something to look at is you want it to be around ideally 8 to 11%. So of all the people who come to your website, let's say average 10% people put something in the cart, but only 2 or 3% check out. So how can you get that add to cart higher? How can you, allow people to buy things faster? Streamline the process of when they come onto your website, how can they quickly add things and check out? Some website I looked at the other day, they'd removed the designer they'd worked with. I can't even think of who it was now. The designer they'd worked with removed the side cart feature on Shopify. And I was like, no, why would you do that? Like, if you're a buyer, if you're someone who buys online a lot, having a side cart and quick and easy checkout makes the streamline the process like so much. It's ridiculous. Definitely having a side cart if you're a Shopify store. Definitely having all the payment systems. Another website I looked at the other day had no Shop Pay. And I was like, oh my God, that drives me crazy because I use Shop Pay quite a lot. And if I go to a website and I have to put my credit card in because, they don't have, it doesn't auto put it in there or it's not on Google Pay or anything, I'm going to leave because probably my credit card is somewhere else in the house. It's not sitting next to me and I'm probably never going to actually process that payment. So really making sure that you make it as streamlined as easy as possible. Let people know about their shipping. So often conversion rate is lower because people don't know what their shipping rate is. You might tell them in shipping page, but you don't tell them 3 times on the website, on your homepage. It should be on your announcement bar. It should be somewhere else in your website. And it also should be in the cart or checkout and tell people exactly what it is, depending if sometimes it's calculated at checkout or sometimes it's actually just a flat rate. Tell people multiple times because that will increase your conversion rate. So navigation menu, make it clear, easy. Can people find what they need really smoothly? These are all important things to look at those 3 numbers, your visitors, conversion rate, and your average order value. I've touched on each of those a little bit, but obviously traffic is a key factor. Now, everyone talks about that if they just did Facebook ads and everything would be better. I don't believe that's the case, and I definitely wouldn't recommend doing Facebook ads until you have a good conversion rate, and that is at least over 2. And if your average order value is at least over $100, because that's going to help you when you actually get traffic, then they'll actually convert. So unless your numbers are over 2% or your average order is up over 100, I wouldn't be doing Facebook ads yet. You can definitely send people to your website, but you want to maximize those two things first before you take any further steps. Just so you know as well, lots of you might have already done it in my program, but I have a 5-day boost your conversion rate program, which I'll link in after this in the notes, to help you go through and how to make changes to your website to actually boost that conversion rate, because it is just so crucial to maximize those sales so that every visitor that comes to your site is going to be get as much chance for them to actually add to cart and purchase as possible.
Hello lovely, if you're looking for a way to grow your product business without relying on Facebook ads or posting daily on social media, then I invite you to register for my free masterclass. This is happening very, very soon, and inside of this masterclass, I'm sharing the strategy behind building a profitable product-based business so you can attract consistent customers and scale to 6 figures and beyond. I also emphasize how to create a sustainable long-term business, which is such an important factor for me. I'm so excited to be teaching this masterclass soon, so make sure you go and register for your free spot by heading to the link in the show notes below.
Anyone else want to put in any numbers in, and we'll go through some changes here? Obviously, the higher your average order value, the easier it is to get those sales. So let's just, as a little random, put in something that's like someone's got a $250 average order value. Maybe you've got, higher price point jewelry or something like that too. But let's say it's $250 average order value and your conversion rate is we'll actually make that 1.5. So it's a bit lower. You need then only 14,000 visitors per month to actually generate that 50,000. So if your average order is 250, but your conversion rate's only 1.5, then if you had 14,000 visitors, you can still make that 50,000. So that is where depends on what your average order value is and your conversion rate is. If that conversion rate went up to 3%, let's just say, for example, you would double the sales because you haven't changed your average order value, you haven't changed the amount of visitors, but you've doubled your conversion rate. Therefore, you've completely doubled your sales, and that's $100,000 in a month that you've got from 14,000 visitors per month, 3% conversion rate, and a average order of 250. So these are all the things I like to play around with, and obviously the spreadsheet I'm using right now in front of me is something that's in my program that I work with in my roadmap program for people to sort of reverse engineer what they want. Let's talk wholesale now, and I just wanted to touch on, let's say that you want to generate $20,000 to $40,000 from your website. Reverse engineering what your conversion rate is, what your average order value is, how many visitors you need, and then work on getting those visitors in multiple ways to your website. Number 2 is the wholesale. So if you're a brand wholesaling, what that looks like is understanding what your average order value is at when people buy, and then figuring out, how often they're going to buy from you. So 1, don't rely on people coming to you when they need to. So if you're a wholesaler and you sell to lots of stores, we all know, well, we don't all know, but I've been a retail buyer, and I can tell you what, running a retail store is hard. It is busy. There is a zillion different things to be doing, and you get a zillion different emails. So you don't always order just because you need it. Even if you might want it, you don't actually put an order in. The ones who contacted me the most, the ones who gave me the best customer service, the ones who streamlined the ordering process and made it as easy as possible were the brands that I bought from the most. So make that process as simple and easy as possible, and make sure you contact people, sell to people, share what you've got, do a little update for them, send them regular emails. But figure out, if you want to get $10,000 a month, because we've taken 30, 40 from the direct to consumer, and we're saying 10 to 20 from wholesale. It depends on what your average order value is, depends on what you can generate. Obviously, if let's say your average order is $1,000, then you need 10 to 20 orders a month. Is that possible? Depends how many stockists you have. If you're starting out, you've got 10, they're probably not going to all reorder every month. If you've got 100, maybe 10% of them will order every month. And don't assume what people will order. I just had a chat with someone I started working with 2 years ago, And she said, she gets reorders now of like $5,000, $10,000, and she would never have thought that was possible, 2 years ago when she didn't have any stockists. So don't, underestimate what people are actually going to be spending, because if you service them, if you showcase them in ways as well, you push your customers to stores as well, and you showcase where your stores are. I did a little rant about this a few weeks ago, where you have to have your stockists on your website if you're a brand, and share them and showcase them and be excited that people are going to go and shop from them, because you want them to sell through their product. You want to push people to them. It's so important as a brand to support your stockists and to really encourage people to shop there. If you've got physical stores that you sell to, then there's so many customers who are never going to buy from you online. They're going to buy in store. So celebrate that you've got physical stores where you can sell your product, or online stores who have an amazing community around them. So make sure you do that, because it's so important. And if you're a retail store and you don't get that support from your brands, ask them to share. Take great photos so they share that content, tag them in them, send them an email and say, hey, can you do a shout out for us that, we're one of your stockists? Ask them, because sometimes they probably just don't even realize or don't even know that they're not doing it. So get them to share it too, and get them to share the new content they create, or you create content as well with their products, as well as the other products that you sell in store. So many times I talk to retail stores and I see that, they have this, the reason that customers will buy from them or you instead of other stores is because you have lots of brands in your store, in your mix. So it's easier for a customer to go into a store and see 10 brands than they can go and shop to 10 of those stores and see the same thing. So celebrate that and talk about that more, and showcase how that makes it easier for customers more. And put things together that, work well together, with whether it's styling, a blazer and a dress and some jewelry that you might have. One of the brands I work with to a retail store, she has like 7 different jewelry brands. And the way that the staff in store do the earring stacks and how they mix together the different brands is so good that it's like, celebrate that more and share that more, because customers want to be able to buy lots of different things from the one place. So make sure you celebrate that. So other opportunities for selling. Do you do pop-up, events, whether it's a retail space, a physical space? Do you do markets at all? What opportunities are there for doing that? And you want to run your business to suit you, but then sometimes you can also get staff to help you do that. Like, you might not want to do a market, but can you get staff to do it for you? Can you get them to actually work for you and, actually just go to markets every weekend, or boutique markets interstate if it's relevant? So definitely don't just have that, block of, no, I don't want to do markets. Well, maybe someone else can do it for you. I've got she's nearly 18-year-old daughter and a 18-year-old niece, and they're about to do a market for my sister, in a few different states, because they're like, yeah, I'm happy to go and, fly to Sydney for the day and do this and do that. So there's people out there who can definitely help you do markets if it's not something that you want to do yourself. It's a great way to capture new audience, get in front of new people, and then hopefully use that data and information to share with people ongoing as well, in terms of, capturing their emails and capturing them to be a long-term customer too. Retail stores, I would just also, focus on that, knowing what your foot traffic is if you're a physical retail store, understanding what your average order value is, and understanding if the staff that you have in store, or if you're in store, does a conversion rate increase? Like, knowing that information is really important. And then how can you change things, whether it's the external space of your store, the physical outside of your store? How can you, attract new visitors to your store or your place if you're a physical store? Whether it's, the rack out the front, or a plant out the front, or an umbrella to let people know that you're open. What are some things that you can do to attract new people to your store? An A-frame. There's all sorts of things that you can do to sort of get that to be noticed, essentially, because as a physical retail store, people walk around with blinders on, and unless you make changes, then they definitely might not even notice that you're there. I used to get that all the time. People would say, "Oh, I didn't even realize you were here. How long have you been here?" And I'd be like, 5 years I've had my retail store here. People would still not notice that I'd been there until I, changed the window or put something out the front or change a signage. They were like, "Oh, I didn't even realize." So anyway, anyone else want to give me some numbers? I can sort of throw some numbers out to you as well. What I would say is stock product. I talked about that earlier. I wanted to touch back on that. You need to ideally understand your supply chain. So know how far ahead you have to order stock or new stock to be able to generate the sales that you want to generate. As a very loose and fast rule, not very strict at all, but as a generalization, you really need at least 3 times the amount of stock value to what sales you want to generate. So for example, if you wanted to generate $50,000 per month in sales, you would need $150,000 worth of stock value to be able to do that, because you're never going to sell out every single unit on your website or in your store. So you need at least 3 times what you want to do. And then depends on how fast you can get stock back again, depends on how much stock you need to carry in your store. As again, a generalization, if it takes you 12 weeks to sort of regenerate that stock or get the new stock, then you'd need at least 3 months worth. So, if you're doing $50,000 a month, you would need $300,000 to $400,000 worth of stock if it takes you 3 months to get that stock. If you can turn the stock over quickly and you can get it within 2 weeks, then you don't need to carry as much stock. So it's that balance for product business, to the stock levels, how much to have of it. You don't want too much and to carry too much cash in stock. You want to turn it over quickly, but you also don't want to get to the point where you've got no stock to sell, and you definitely can't get the sales then if you don't have the stock to sell. So that balance is quite hard to get, but it's an important one to sort of constantly focus on and understand where you're at as well. Also, I just wanted to touch on pricing. I know one of my clients in here is going to be like, what I haven't touched on here is margins. So I've also got in this spreadsheet that I use, and anyone in my roadmap program, make sure you're actually using this and focusing on it and figuring out what you need. Anyone who wants to get into the roadmap program, I'll put a link. It's in the link in my bio, actually. It's a program where you can run a profitable product business. So it's about profit and numbers and figuring out what you need to do and what sales channels you can use, how to actually do them, and actually also marketing, how to get people to your website and so on. Figure out your margin too. So if you've got a certain percentage of retail sales, that's a higher margin. A certain percentage of wholesale sales, that's a different margin. Averaging that out, what is your gross profit margin? Then the actual spreadsheet will tell you what your actual, gross profit is at the end of the day too. So knowing what your gross profit margin is really important too. And remembering that even though retail gives you a much higher margin, it is much harder and more expensive to acquire the customers, and they spend less. So wholesale, even though you get less margin, the lifetime value of a wholesale customer is much higher, and you have to spend less money to acquire them and nurture them and keep them than you do a retail customer. So that's that balance between the two. Retail stores, really important to consider your margin and try and make sure that your margin is over 50%. Now, that is tough when you're buying from other brands and you can only set your prices at a certain amount and you've got other expenses to pay. But ideally, you would try and get your margin over 50. And if it's not, how can you add in a few products that you can put a better margin on to average that out, so it does end up around that, normal retail margin for a retail store who buys other brands is between 42 and 55%, like as an average. So figuring that out is really, knowing what yours is really important. And then that's where you can, the point of sale system you have and stuff like that will help you figure that out. Gone longer than I actually anticipated. So had a lot to say here. As those of you who know, I love talking about numbers and helping you reverse engineer how you can get to the numbers that you want. Now, these are, arbitrary numbers that I've just picked today. You can obviously have a different number to figure out, what you need to do to get to these particular sales. I have the roadmap program where I go through all of this stuff with my clients in there, and they have all these access to all these templates and spreadsheets and all that sort of stuff too. And then I have a mastermind, which I'm running, which is a 6-month intensive for those who are sort of already at that little, 100 sort of, maybe you're at 10K or 8 to 10K months already. And you're like, okay, this is it. I need to make sure that I'm getting to that next level. I need support to get there. I need someone to help me guide, someone to like push, someone to kick you up the butt and say, well, why haven't you done that yet? Because that's what I did last year with a few people. And they were like, yeah, I've done more in 2 weeks and I thought I'd actually get done in 6 months. That's what I'm about too. So yeah, that is definitely DM me if you're interested in that, and let me know if you're keen to find out more. Yeah, you can get into my roadmap program. You can get into my mastermind at any time, because it is there when you need it, not just, this arbitrary window that we have open. So lots of talking. Hopefully that's been really helpful for you. Can't wait to hear, some feedback, or if you have any questions, just put them in the messages below or DM me. And yeah, I look forward to working with some more of you and answering any questions about how to get to these numbers. And but if you've got a handmade product, figuring out what you need to do to get to what products you need to make to get there. Is that possible? Do you need help to get there? Don't have that limiting belief like, I can't do it, it's too hard. What can you do to help yourself if you are that handmade product as well? All right. And also understanding, having the abundance mindset that there is so many customers out there. There is enough customers for everyone. Sports shoe companies keep putting out new shoes. Levi's keep putting out new Levi's. Like, there's no limit to how many pairs of jeans. Well, I don't have a limit to how many pairs of jeans and sneakers I can have. But, there's so many customers out there. Don't think that if you're promoting your stockist, that there's going to be a limit of customers. Don't think that, if this store over here has got 1,000 customers, that you're not going to have them. There's so many customers out there, whether you're, local brand or a global brand. There's just so many people, and no one's going to stop consuming. No one is going to stop consuming. So just put yourself out there, share what you've got, and keep working hard. All right, let's see.
Thank you so much for listening to the Lotco Business Podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please make sure you subscribe to receive future episodes as they are released. And I'd be so grateful for a review on Apple Podcast. If you would like a copy of the show notes or any of the links mentioned today, please jump onto my website at thelotco.com.au/podcast. Have an amazing week, and I look forward to chatting to you again soon.